Okay, Sandra's going to do.
Thank you, Chandler.
A little Middle Eastern number on the Doombeck. This is just a medley of traditional Middle Eastern belly dance rhythms, 4/4, in no particular order. Okay, and then we're going to do this last one. Find it. Is a popular Haitian rhythm called Igo, still played and popular, but it derives from a Nigerian rhythm, and I've been playing Ibo for some time, but I found the original, the notations for the original African rhythm, so I just sort of combined the two together to see what would happen, and it comes out as an interesting rhythm. Yay! That's my 15 minutes of fame.
Oh, great.
You all.
So each of the candidates will have 5 minutes of fame. So I really want to thank Chandler. Chandler, Sandra, and others were, they also played at our Earth Day event that we had in front of the Newport City Council last Saturday. So Chandler and Sandra and his other musicians have been really doing double duty, and want to thank you. And Chandler's also played before at a number of our virtual Zoom Earth Day events that we've had in years past. So anyways, thank you very much, Chandler. So anyways, we're gonna, because we have a pretty busy schedule, we're gonna jump right into the 4th district. And so each of the candidates has 5 minutes to speak. This isn't really set up as a debate. They have 5 minutes to address environmental issues for, for their particular position that's sought. And what I was going to do is just sort of do this in alphabetical order. And so the first person, and I'm going to immediately apologize at the beginning. So if we go by alphabetical order, the first is Corvallis School District Board Member Sammy. And Sammy, I know I'm going to mispronounce your name, so why don't
you won't. Give it a try.
Oh, okay. So I will say Al Abdrabah.
And that's the name of your future member of Congress. Thank you so much.
Okay, well, you can correct me. So
you got it right. You got it right. Thank you.
Okay. Well, go ahead, Doctor.
Thank you, Martin, and thank you, everybody, for being here. My name is Dr. Sami Abdrabah, former elected school board chair and also a community member next door. I want to start off by saying hello, neighbors. I have a criteria wherever I move in the world. Since we moved out of Phoenix shortly after I was born in Tucson, I made a decision whenever I have the ability to move to a new place and call it home, it's going to be less than 60 minutes drive to the coast. So living in the Middle East in Saudi Arabia, we were 5 minutes or 15 minutes maximum from the coast of the Gulf. Humid and hot and warm, but large body of water, and I love it. Now I live in Corvallis, and the criteria is still fulfilled. I have 15 minutes drive to the ocean, and I love Oregon Ocean. It's not warm, it's windy, you gotta layer up, but it's accessible for everybody. And that's the first thing I want to talk about, preserving our nature and preserving our natural resources and our access to the beauty of Oregon. I'm reminded by someone I heard of one more time just earlier today, driving back and forth in Lincoln County, knocking on doors and going in somewhere near Toledo. And the gentleman, as soon as I came in and told him, my name is Sami Abdrabah, and I'm running to be your next member of Congress. And he was like, wow, seriously? The last time someone came to our neck of the woods was Governor Tom McHale when he was running for governor. And we talked about those amazing things that we've done since then, granting access to the ocean and to the coast, making sure we preserve our nature, the Oregon way, that nature and the environment comes really centerpiece to what we do in our government. And that's what I want to be. So let me tell you first about my story. I grew up in the Middle East and witnessed really challenging things, including threatening basic human rights. And I never imagined hearing American politicians following in their footsteps on the other side of the aisle. And I'm running for Congress to stand up to anyone attacking our democracy. I am an engineer who would let facts and science guide our response to the climate crisis and ensure we all have access to good health care, to good education, and making sure the environment is sustainable and is a sustainable access to resources is going to remain there, not for my generation, not for the younger generation, but for many, many, many generations to follow. It is one thing to talk about climate change. It's another to do actually something about it. And let me tell you what I have done and what I want to do today. And I'm really grateful for giving me the space and time to talk about how we can address the climate. As an engineer, I taught thousands of students who are now engineers in many different sectors how to study systems. Because we know for every action, there is a reaction, and for every decision, there might be unintended consequences, or what I call in public policy, not thinking thoroughly about a policy. And many decisions we heard about since the 70s, companies putting the banners, we're green right now, but they're actually harming the environment, were an example of not well thought out policies. As an engineer, I'll always address those unintended consequences, prioritize making sure we're saving the climate and addressing water security, energy security, and making sure we have access to energy that is clean, addressing waste, and making sure any technologies that are renewable are going to be available for us from the cradle to the grave as a sustainable product. We cannot develop products that will go to the junkyard and harm the environment more. So if you want to invest in electric cars, sustainable solar panels, and making sure people have access to those from low income and middle class communities, that's what I have done in my community. As a caucus member advocating for legislation.
Excuse me, Doctor.
Yes.
You have one minute left. So.
Thank you very much. As a caucus member and who advocated with the legislator and elected board leader, I have done this work, created more jobs for sustainable work. I have led this steering committee of the Sustainable Coalition, along with colleagues who are mindful about the work that we need to do on a local level. And we have advanced Corvallis by solarizing it and now electrifying it. And I ask you to do the same in the local community where we can work together. The IPCC Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change is a report. Their report is alarming, and we need to focus on delivering solutions and less slogans. That's what I promise you as your next member of Congress. We will protect our access to the natural resources and have sustainable practices in producing energy and consuming energy, and making sure that climate justice comes with economical justice, racial justice, and rural justice. And that's the work I promise to do. My name is Dr. Sami Al-Abdrabbo, and my friend Sonia McKenzie will share with you some of the good work I've done as an elected leader, business leader, nonprofit leader, as an engineer. And I ask you to go to samiforcongress.com, chip in right now, so we can reach to the tens of thousands, literally tens of thousands of Democrats all across the district.
Thank you,
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Okay, so going in alphabetical order, next up is Doyle Canning. So Doyle, you want to start? Unmute yourself. And so anyway, I want to thank everybody for muting themselves. It really makes it much more pleasant not hearing background noise or whatever. So I want to thank the audience. And as I said, you can post questions if you want, but just be polite. So Doyle, got 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you. I'm Doyle Canning. Thank you so much to the citizens for Better Lincoln County for hosting tonight's environmental forum. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, sounding good, Doyle.
All right, wonderful. Thank you for all that you do at the grassroots level to make our communities better and protect our planet. I am Doyle Canning, she, her, of Eugene, Oregon, running to represent you in Congress. I am here tonight because I learned what injustice looked like when I was younger than my youngest, my son, is now, before I blew out the candles on my 7th birthday cake. My mother was a strong role model, but she was also married to an abusive alcoholic. And when my father got violent in our home, my mother would tell me to run, because if the police came, when they came, they would make excuses and look the other way. That wasn't the case for the Black families in our neighborhood who would take me in and take care of me when I needed support to keep me safe. So at a very tender age, I learned that there are two systems of justice in our country, one for the powerful and one for the rest of us. And that's what made me a community organizer, eventually sent me to law school, and why I'm here on this Zoom with you tonight. Because I know that this unequal system has created multiple crises in our country and for our climate, and that politics as usual won't deliver the solutions that we need now. For 20 years, I've worked as a progressive policy strategist facing off with Wall Street banks, big polluters, billionaires, and the politicians they pay for. In this Congress, I worked for Greenpeace in the push for the largest renewable energy investments ever proposed in the United States as part of President Biden's Build Back Better agenda over the relentless lobbying of Exxon and other fossil fuel interests. Our campaign kayaked to Senator Joe Manchin's yacht with West Virginians begging him to pass a bill that had 62% popularity with the American people. Ultimately, we came up short. I know the barrier to action for our climate in Washington isn't a lack of good science, technology, ideas, or public support. It is corruption. It is the flood of fossil fuel money into our elections and the crushing pressure of lobbyists who are paid to keep the failed status quo going. As a community organizer, strategist, and environmental attorney, I've spent 20 years working in the environmental movement and getting things done. When chemical giant Monsanto was bullying family farmers into using their toxic Roundup herbicides and lobbying with false promises and big campaign contributions, I built a bipartisan grassroots movement to pass the nation's first law to label GMO seeds. When 70,000 salmon died in the Klamath River, I campaigned against billionaire Warren Buffett to build a bipartisan coalition of tribes, ranchers, and fishermen to help win the plan for the largest federal dam removal in our country's history. And when the Jordan Cove LNG pipeline and fossil fuel terminal threatened 5 rivers, countless homes, tribal communities, our climate, and the heart of our Coast Range, I was building a coalition of rural and urban Oregonians to fight back and win the cancellation of that polluting project. I know that people power can beat big money. And after our district moved 9 points towards Democrats in redistricting, including welcoming Lincoln County, we deserve a Democrat in Congress who is unbought by the fossil fuel industry and billionaire super PACs and clear-eyed about solving the greatest challenge facing humanity now, the climate emergency. The good news is that we can uplift our community and bring down our planet's fever with investments in renewable energy here in Oregon. The 4th Congressional District is home to the most promising federal waters for offshore wind power development, the largest tidal energy field research facility in the United States, and federal forests that play a critical role in carbon sequestration.
Oh,
2022.
Excuse me, Doyle. So you got about 30, 45 seconds left. So
Perfect. Thank you. 2022 will be a tough year for Democrats. And to win this election, we need to inspire young voters, the disillusioned, the people who are tired of the same old politics as usual. Our campaign is strong, campaigning on both of the major campuses and communities in every county, building an urban and rural and coastal coalition backed by a dozen environmental organizations and national leaders like Bill McKibben, Jane Fonda, and Winona LaDuke, and local leaders like Lincoln County Commissioner Claire Hall, former Secretary of State Bill Bradbury, and Lincoln Democratic Party County Chair Michael Gaskill. You can count on me to lead in Congress, and I'm here tonight to ask if I can count on your support to send me there. You can learn more about me and our campaign at canningforcongress.com. Thank you so much.
yeah, thank you, Doyle. Next up, we have BOLI Commissioner Val Hoyle. So Val, if you want to go unmute yourself, and I got 5 minutes.
Thank you. I am Val Hoyle, and I want to thank you all for the opportunity to speak with you today, for putting this on. Also to thank Chandler Davis and Sandra for the opening drum circle. Many of you already know who I am because I've lived and worked in the community of the 4th District for more than 20 years. I'm honored to serve as your state labor commissioner, and we're here tonight to discuss environmental issues, but I want to give you a bit of background about where I came from. My husband and I raised our 2 kids in Lane County. We moved here for the quality of life and the reputation of the schools. And when I found out about Measure 5 and the school funding issues, I got involved because I come from an organizing background. My dad was a firefighter, president of his local union, and I organized with PERG and also for the last immigration reform bill that we were able to get through Congress, and with the building trades when I was in college. I was a member of Unite here, being the 3rd generation union member in my family. I became chair of the Democratic Party of Lane County in 2004 because I knew we needed to get the majority back. So I've helped get candidates elected up and down the ballot, from school board to legislature. I've knocked on doors in Lincoln County for Gene Cowan and then for David Gomberg. And when my state representative moved up to the Senate, I stepped up and ran for the seat for the House because I knew we needed more strong voices from outside the Portland metro area in the legislature. So after my first term, I was elected by my colleagues to the position of Democratic Majority Leader. And during my time in the legislature, I had the opportunity to lead on a number of environmental issues. In my first session in 2010, I supported the bill to prohibit offshore drilling in our state, declaring our waters off limits to exploration and production of fossil fuels. As the majority leader, I was responsible for working with all of the other members of our Democratic caucus from our urban areas, our rural areas, and up and down the coast to deliver and pass key legislation. It wasn't always easy because, we had people from, all across, we had very tight margins, but I built relationships with people from across the state and across the political spectrum to understand the needs of their constituents and their unique communities. Those relationships and that trust allowed me to bring together people for big votes, and I did that time and time again. When Oregon's Clean Fuels program was in danger of dying on the launch pad due to the sunset clause in the original legislation, I led the fight to pass the bill to end the sunset and fund the program to reduce carbon intensity of our transportation fuels in the state. And since we passed that bill, the Clean Fuels program has reduced more than 6 million tons of greenhouse gas emissions and displaced more than 1 billion gallons of fossil fuels. It's a success that in Oregon we should be proud of. And when the industry tried to stop us from addressing toxic chemicals in children's products, I led the fight to deliver the votes on our Toxic Free Kids Act in 2015 to require reporting and removal of chemicals known to cause cancer and other serious health impacts. Also in 2015, I led the push to pass the bill to limit suction dredge mining in critical fish habitat in Southern Oregon. And in 2016, I voted for the landmark legislation that made Oregon the first state in the nation to ban coal power from our electric grid, prohibiting utilities from purchasing coal by wire electricity generated in other states. I'm proud to be the only candidate in this race who's voted on and passed legislation to address climate change, and to be the only candidate with the endorsement of the League of Conservation Voters Action Fund, Congressman Peter DeFazio, Senators Jeff Merkley, Senator Ron Wyden, and your very own David Gomberg. Climate change is one of the greatest challenges we're confronting today, and we're seeing the impacts now here in Oregon in the form of severe droughts, extreme wildfire seasons, and heat events. My family was evacuated from our home during the Labor Day fires, as were many of you. And our home was
excuse me, Val. So you got
Yeah.
30 seconds left. So,
okay.
yeah.
So the bottom line is, I would love to earn your support. I have a long record of delivering. I also know how to win tough seats. I am the only person that's won in a swing seat in a difficult year. I'm willing to do the work. I represent you now. I'd like to represent you again, and I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you, Commissioner. I do a lot of testifying at the local and the state level, and so I'm used to legislators telling me to shut up after 3 minutes, and so I hold them
Totally fine.
I hold them to 5 minutes. So next up we have Andrew. Is it Kalak or Kalak, Andrew? I'll let you pronounce your name properly.
It's Kalak. It's think about the old hair thing, but
okay,
just
I got
variation
that
on that.
problem. Okay, you got 5 minutes, Andrew.
Thanks very much, everybody. My name is Andrew Kalak. I'm the son of public school teachers. I'm a father of 3 little ones. There they are on my screen. There, you always lead with your best face in politics, so naturally they are front and center. And I am a former civil rights attorney at the ACLU. I'm running for Congress to bring an independent mind and a new generation of leadership to DC. As a millennial, I have faced many of the challenges of younger Americans. That includes graduating from law school with 6-figure student debt, facing the challenge of having a childcare bill that runs in the thousands of dollars every month, and put those 2 things together, and it's pretty difficult to save for a home as well. And we are among the most lucky millennials you'll find. We were able to pay those bills, and we were able to finally pay off our student debt in our mid-30s, but so many people cannot. And so I'm running for Congress to bring that lived experience and that perspective to a body that often doesn't have it, or at the very least doesn't act with the urgency that it needs to on those issues. Speaking of not acting with the urgency that it needs to, it hasn't acted with the urgency that it needs to on climate, in part because I think for far too long, we've thought of climate as one priority that we slot in along a whole host of other priorities, when in fact, climate and the environment more broadly is the through line that affects every piece of legislation that comes through Congress. You want to talk about the Farm Bill, the Defense Bill, the Transportation Package, even measures related to housing and urban development. Each of those pieces should be seen as a climate bill. And indeed, when I'm in Congress, every bill to me will be a climate bill. And I think this tells you a little bit about how I think about leveraging power and how I will lead as a member of Congress. Because the truth is that in Congress, oftentimes the best way to get things done is to make sure that you understand what the must pass bills are in any given year, such as the Farm Bill, the defense authorization, et cetera, and see those as opportunities to advance an agenda that is connected to those issues, yes, but also furthers things like climate justice. So just to give you one example, we've been talking a little bit about regenerative agriculture in this campaign, how Oregon can be a leader in regenerative agriculture, techniques that not only can increase yield, but can limit the amount of carbon intensity of agriculture. And the federal government does invest in this right now through the USDA, but the grant program is in the tens of millions of dollars when it really needs to be in the tens of billions of dollars. And so when that Farm Bill comes up in the next Congress, you can bet that I'll be working not only within Oregon, but across the country, people from urban districts and rural districts, to try to advance the ball on regenerative ag and a whole host of other issues. So again, every bill is a climate bill. And if you think about it that way, then you're going to be able to leverage more of those must pass bills for the benefit of climate. If you go to my website and click on the issues page, which I just dropped in the chat, you'll see that climate change is at the top. And you'll see a series of bullets about this type of approach to climate, where it's not just about climate bills specifically, although there are some in this list, such as a carbon tax and dividend proposal, which I support. It's also about making sure that we have a coalition that spans rural and urban districts that can support transportation equity, the increased density around transportation corridors, and making sure that people can live lives where they don't have to get in their cars, even if they are EVs. They don't have to get in their cars as much as they currently do. That really is transforming American life, but it's a transformation that'll not only make the planet healthier, it'll make each of us healthier as well. So that's something that I've done a lot of work on and will continue to do as a member of Congress. Lastly, I want to mention a few of the things that I've done on climate during my career, which has spanned both the ACLU and government and the private sector. I wrote an amicus brief. There was a lawsuit that went all the way to the highest court in New York State, and I wrote an amicus brief which supported local government's right to ban hydrofracking. We won that case. It was an incredibly important case early on in the fight about fracking, and I was proud to be part of that. I also wrote a blueprint for public transportation in the 21st century, and that again was in the city of New York, a place that depends on it and needs further investment in it.
Yeah, excuse me, Andrew. So you got 1 minute left to go.
Terrific, thank you. And then lastly, I've tried to be as creative as possible, and I think we need to be when it comes to climate and the environment on issues spanning everything from permeable pavement technology to investment in green airports and increasing fuel taxes on airplanes to fund greener transportation technology. So I've done this work in a variety of different settings. I will bring that type of climate action is, every bill is a climate bill approach to Congress. And I really want to make sure that we deliver results and not just rhetoric on this, because the truth is that there's a lot of sort of rhetoric in the climate movement. You can ban coal plants from your state, but if you're still importing coal energy, as Oregon is, that doesn't do much good. And so I'm going to focus on the results, not the rhetoric, and try to deliver as much as possible for the people of Lincoln County and beyond. Thank you all so much for having me.
Yep, thank you, Andrew. Next up, we have Jacob. Let's go ahead, Jacob, and you got 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Environmental degradation. Only the willfully ignorant or the intellectually dormant can deny that human-induced climate change has altered the Earth's environment to the point where it may no longer be fit for human habitation. This makes it entirely possible that humans will be the first species to prune our own branch from the proverbial tree of life. The only way to solve climate change is to have an economic effect on the major polluters, and the politicians accepting money from the major polluters like our frontrunner Val Hoyle happily does. In response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the West has snapped a series of sanctions into place. Russia is the world's second largest crude oil exporter and primary source of global natural gas. Regardless of the short-term effects on our pocketbooks, over the longer term, we need to transition to renewable energies if we have any hope of keeping the Earth habitable and freeing our economy from the influence of geopolitical foes. This is where carbon dividends come in, and it works like this. We put a hard cap on the amount of carbon we allow into the economy. Permits up to this cap would be issued, and energy companies could buy them in quarterly auctions. At every mine, refinery, and port of entries, these companies would have to use a permit for every ton of carbon dioxide that would be released into the atmosphere once that fuel is burned. When they run out of their permits, they cannot extract or import any more carbon polluting fuel. To keep the climate from rising 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, the goal of the Paris Climate Accord, we need to slash emissions by roughly 90%. And accomplishing this by 2050 would demand reductions of up to 7.5% per year. Currently, we're decreasing at a rate of about 1.2% per year. With a carbon cap, in order to ensure we meet our goals, we could simply decrease the amount of permits issued by 7.5% every year. But how do we do this without making sure that Americans get clobbered at the gas pump? That's where the carbon dividends come in. The revenue from selling the permits will be distributed back to the public as direct payments, no strings attached. For the majority of middle class and poor Americans, the dividend will more than cover any increase in fuel prices, and they'll come out ahead. The Earth's capacity to absorb carbon is a natural resource, one we should all share equally instead of giving the wealthy and oil profiteers free rein. Plus, everyone benefits from a cleaner planet. One study found that nearly 250,000 premature deaths would be prevented over the next 20 years in the US alone with a carbon fee and a dividend program. This idea is actually notably popular across the political spectrum. Carbon dividends were first proposed in 2009 in a bipartisan bill, and subsequent plans have come in from both Republicans and Democrats. And there's already precedent for part of this program as well. Back in 2009, the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative has capped and sold carbon permits to power companies in 11 northeastern states. It is boosting their economies and has proven politically resilient. And in Alaska, every resident receives between $1,000 and $2,000 annually from the Alaska Permanent Fund, which invests in the state oil royalties. Over 80% of Alaskans say it improves their quality of life. We treat gas as something out of our control, giving dangerous amounts of power to petrostates like Russia with alarming consequences. We gain relief from dirty air that kills millions globally, relief from the constant hemorrhage of government subsidies for fossil fuels and from wars for oil. Above all, relief from the ongoing destruction of the Earth's climate. The best way to contain Russia and build a sustainable future is with a carbon dividend. Furthermore, we will also require that fossil fuel companies that have profited from the environmental injustices to compensate the communities that they have harmed, which includes us here in Oregon. Companies like Exxon, which have known since at least 1977 that fossil fuels would harm the planet, but they chose to mislead the public instead of taking action. Meanwhile, millions of Americans, especially the poor, Black, brown, and indigenous communities, already have to fight to drink clean water and breathe clean air as their communities are devastated by climate-fueled disasters.
Excuse me, Jacob. So you got 1 minute to go.
Thank you. Climate denial and rampant pollution are not victimless crimes. Fossil fuel corporations must be held accountable and be forced to pay for the damage they wrought. You can check out more details on my website, whynotoregon.com. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jacob. And so last up for the 4th Congressional District is G. Tommy Smith. And actually, I also want to take the time to thank everybody for staying muted. And actually, I noticed one of my cousins is joining right now. I probably have to make sure I mute her though. But anyways, I want to thank everyone for staying muted. And so G. Tommy Smith, 5 minutes.
All right. Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Chandler and Sandra, for the music that you played earlier. Quite entertaining. Thank you for all those of you who are joining us. I'll try not to take 10 minutes. But thank you for being here. My name is G. Tommy Smith, but please just call me Tommy. I'm a local kid here from the Valley. I went to elementary school here and I graduated high school here. After serving the Navy of 10 years, I decided to move. I can move anywhere in the world, and I decided to come back home because this is where my heart is. And I moved back home after 10 years, and then I graduated from the University of Oregon with my business degree. After I got my business degree, I bought a business that was failing and turned it around to profit within 3 months. Expanded to 3 stores across 2 states, had up to 15 employees. Some of the things I wanted to talk to today about is what can we do about environment? I know in the summer times, as much as we just look forward to our beautiful summers that we have here, you know, some of the things that we might dread is the forest fires that are going to happen, unfortunately. And through hundreds of years of us stopping forest fires because we didn't want to damage property or anything else, we have a lot of undergrowth that has taken hold of a lot of our forests. That's why I'm in a strong support of forest restoration. There's approximately about 6 million acres of Oregon forest that badly needs forest restoration. We can employ many of our local mills and logging companies to help us out with that, with thinning, not completely clearing areas to help mitigate the cost of forest fires. So one of the things I can definitely think that needs to happen throughout the whole country is a carbon tax. The more that someone pollutes into their air, you know, the more they should have to pay. Another thing that I definitely believe in, and I wish that we would do, is more along in the Midwest, is stop the high concentration of farm animals in a small area. One, it's inhumane, or not, it's just animal cruelty in the first place. 2, it's causing a lot of damage to the environment. Some of the other things I like to talk on just about other than environment, although there's a lot of things that we can talk about, we just don't have enough time, is as your congressman, I'll be definitely working hard for veterans like myself to help the VA program. My understanding, which I have very little knowledge of, but I'm definitely going to be working hard to find out more, is about more of our Native American issues that are plaguing our district and how we can solve them. I know the mental health crisis that is happening is tragic. My own family members suffer from mental illness. And a lot of times if something happens, then an ill-equipped police force has to get involved. And that's just not how we should be doing things, especially with people who need help. And I just want to sit there and say is that one of the things about me that you'll know is that I'm a man of faith. I am a man who was walking a certain line. It might look like a little drunken line sometimes, but it's definitely a walk. I don't try to project my faith onto other people. I just like the people know that I'm coming from a place where I believe in loving thy neighbor and then to love thy God. So all I try to do is try to put out the hope and mercy out there, try to work as hard as I can and help as many possible people that I can. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me today. My name is Tommy.
Well, you got another minute, Tommy, if you want another minute.
I mean, I could talk forever, you know, I'm just a little tired. I mean, I got off work and came straight to here and popped open my laptop. My 2 cats are already mad at me. So anything we can do to speed this along, I'm happy to help.
Great. Okay, well, it's right now you get the prize for giving the quickest presentation. So anyways, that concludes the candidates for the 4th Congressional District. And now we move to the state representative 10th District. And just let everybody know, I sent off email invitations to all of the candidates that were registered for these 4 seats. And so only one of, and there are only 2 of them that were running for the 10th District, State Representative Gomberg and then Celeste McEntee. So anyways, Representative Gomberg, you're up and I'll let you have 5 minutes.
Well, thank you so much, Martin. And hello, friends. Gosh, it seems like I've just seen you. And maybe that's because from the most cases, I did see you on Saturday out at the lawn in Newport when we were celebrating Earth Day and enjoying some fine drum circle sounds there as well. And just before I came to the Earth Day celebration, I was down on the beach at Nye Beach as part of the annual Earth Day beach cleanup. I picked up a bag full of butts and bags and a couple of orphaned shoes that I found. But I think what disturbed me the most out there are the things, not the things you see, but the things you don't see. The plastics, the microplastics that break down and get into our streams, into our ocean, into our fields, into our crops, and eventually filter into our food streams, which means that each and every week, you and I consume on average 5 grams of plastic. That's about the size of an average size credit card. Think about that for a minute. The microplastics that are in our systems that we don't see. And the other things that we don't see out there, like ocean acidification, hypoxia, ocean warming, the effects of drought on stream flows, and how that affects our crustaceans, our shellfish, and our fish flows. And what's the answer to all those problems? I mean, the answer in my mind is, first of all, personal action, like picking up trash on the beach, but it's also science, that we have to trust and believe the science, which is why I was so pleased to bring $1 million home from Salem this year to fund the Oregon Science Trust, and they are now issuing research grants for problems right here on the Central Coast. And I was proud to be a driver of the effort that brought the Marine Science Center to Newport. And I believe that eventually the work being done there is going to eclipse the work being done on the East Coast or anywhere else in the world. And if we're going to, it's going to be done by the good people. The early endorsement of the Oregon League of Conservation Voters. I think you need to look at